This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So today, what I'll do is I'll walk you through the EWM functionalities. I'll just introduce EWM, what EWM offers, and how it is different than WM, and what are the versions that we have, and what is that we are going to cover in as part of course, and all these things I'll cover. Right. Uh, so EWM, Extended Warehouse Management. So this was part of supply chain management before. Now it is in S4. I mean, even though we have this in SCM server, still with the latest versions, EWM is part of S4 server. That is from 1610. When SAP released S4 HANA, EWM is also part of S4 HANA. So before that, it was part of SCM server, where in SCM server you have transportation management and advanced learning and optimization. These modules were there. I mean, these are the modules that we know, and there are other modules also there like FSCM and GTS. These are all modules as part of SCM server. Uh, Basically, why do we use any WMS system? It's like to track your material movements within your factory or within your warehouse. Basically, that means to track the exact coordinate position of the inventory, as well as to simplify your logistic movements within your warehouse. That's the reason we use any WMS system. It's not just EWM or WM or any Red Prairie or JD Edwards or anything. So basically, why do we use WMS? WMS system is basically is to track your inventory at uh, micro level, I would say. So EWM is not released recently. Basically, this is released in 2006, 2005-6 season, when big chains of automotive such as Ford, when they wanted to have uh, spare parts planning, and they wanted to track the spare parts related movements within their warehouse. SAP has released a solution for them as part of spare parts planning initially. This EWM was part of spare parts planning. It's kind of submodule within spare parts planning. And later on, SAP has developed EWM and started releasing versions, like the first version is EWM 5.0. And then SAP has evaluated, and there were some improvements, and then SAP kept on releasing versions after that. So it started with 7.0, 9.0, 9.1, 2, 3, and we have 9.4, 9.5 also. So versions are getting released, and there are functionality which are being added, right? And later what SAP has did is SAP has introduced this functionality, EWM functionality in S4. So this is a journey of WMS systems in SAP. In R3 we don't have any WMS, and then start later on they have introduced lean WM, and after that we have WM, and we have decentralized WM, which is parallel to WM, and after that we have EWM, and now it is embedded EWM. We do have SCM EWM as well as embedded EWM in current versions. I mean, in latest releases, I would say. SCM also you can use EWM, as well as you can use this embedded EWM also. So which version to use, that requires some analysis. We'll try to understand what is the analysis going forward. So how do we decide which version to be implemented? Is it like whether we have to go for embedded EWM, or we have to go to with SCM EWM? That is something which requires some analysis. We'll try to analyze, and then we'll decide. So this is a journey. Now, what is WM? So how WM is integrated with your other modules? If you see a box, or if you see a database, basically, so within one box you have other modules such as your sales, procurement, and you have finance, and your production, and other modules. Other modules are also there, and WM is also part of that system only. WM is tightly integrated with all these modules. Let's say if I say, if while receiving, how do I receive the stock? I can receive the stock against a purchase order, or I can receive the stock against an inbound delivery or outbound delivery also. There's a possibility of receiving it multiple ways. That depends on the business requirement and business process that you are working on. Now, how we are saying that the WM is tightly integrated is because we have an integration between IM and WM through moment type integration. through moment type. Let's say if I say, let's say if I create an inbound delivery and saying that inbound delivery, what I do is I input the material. I mean, I'll fetch all information from purchase order, such as material, plant, storage location. In case storage location is maintained in the purchase order, that storage location will be pulled over to the inbound delivery. Otherwise, what we can do is that you can maintain the storage location in the inbound delivery, so that system identifies that this particular delivery is supposed to executed in WM. Now we know that this delivery is executed in WM. How system knows that is interface? It is based on the moment type that you're using. So we have a tight integration there between IM and WM. So when it comes to decentralized WM, so we have other version, which, as I said, the decentralized WM is a parallel version of WM, wherein you use only WM in a different server or different instance. I should not say server, different instance of ECC. For example, you have two instances of ECC. In one instance, you are going to use all IM related modules, let's say purchasing and MM, SD, FI, PP, all these modules you use in one instance. And in another instance, you'd like to use only WM. So the reason for this is normally because of your system performance or operational constraints or any other possibilities. Basically, you'd like to use a different instance for WM. In that case, we use a option called decentralized WM. So basically, we need to have an integration between these two instances. So once the data is created in one instance, let's say in ECC1, that data should get distributed to WM, decentralized WM, which is the other instance. So for this, we maintain the system integration, and we maintain RFC connection between two systems. And also we maintain something called distribution models and all, so that data get distributed to WM. So that's how decentralized WM works. So when it comes to EWM, so as I said, EWM was part of SCM server initially. Now SCM server itself is a different server altogether. Like how we have ECM, ECC, we have SCM also. So in ECC, we have all these modules, and in SCM, I would like to use extended warehouse management, EWM. So we need to transfer the data. So the data instance, we can divide the data into two. One is master data and the other one is transactional data. So when it comes to master data, so the master data is your material master or vendor master, customer master, or any other master data that you would like to use in EWM. We need to transfer the data from ECC to SCM server. That's one thing. And next is transactional data. So when it comes to transactional data, like deliveries, EWM works only with deliveries. Without deliveries, you'll not be able to work. So we need to create a delivery. It can be inbound delivery for receiving and outbound delivery for shipping. So once the inbound delivery or outbound delivery is getting created, even this data should be distributed to EWM. For that, we need to maintain the same kind of distribution model what we are maintaining in decentralized WM. And how processes will be executed is, it's like, let's say if I speak about receiving process. So receiving process, in the receiving process, how the process is like, you create a purchase order and release a purchase order to your vendor, and vendor confirms that he'll be able to deliver goods. That's like order acknowledgement. And whenever he ships the good, he'll send the ASN, advanced shipping notification. And if your vendor is EDI enabled, what will happen is like that EDI will come and it will create inbound delivery automatically in your system. Once inbound delivery is created, that inbound delivery will be pushed to EWM, and further activities such as goods receipt and placing the stock in the exact locations inside the warehouse, all these activities will be directly done in EWM. And once activities are completed, the communication should be sent back to ECC, because you're receiving the stock in EWM. You have to confirm that, or you have to update the document flow of inbound delivery, and also you have to update the stock information in ERP system, I would say ECC also. That's one part. Now when it comes to outbound, so outbound is also like this. You receive a order from your customer, and you create a customer order, that's your sales order, and you can have a delivery due list job, which would create deliveries. And these deliveries, once deliveries are created, these deliveries will be distributed to EWM. And further activities such as picking, and in case if you have a packing functionality, packing and goods issue, loading, all these activities will be done in EWM. And once activities are completed, then you send a communication back to ERP, I would say ECC. So that is inbound and outbound. So here it is a bidirectional. In case of transactional data, the transfer will be bidirectional. from ERP to EWM and EWM to ERP. When it comes to master data, before I create a transactional data, I need to have master data. So in case of master data, once I transfer the data from ERP to EWM, you do some maintenance in EWM specific to warehouses, and that data will not flow back to ERP. And there's no need of flowing it back to ERP also, because the data is specific to EWM, and you don't need to transfer any data from EWM to ERP also. So master data is unidirectional, that is from ERP to EWM. This is about SCM EWM. And these are different deployment options we have, so we can understand them later. Now when it comes to embedded EWM, so embedded EWM is nothing but within one system. Let's say if I take S4 HANA, let's say the latest version 1909, within S4 HANA you have EWM also available in the same box. Within S4 HANA you have EWM also available in the same box. So which means you don't need to use two different boxes or two different servers, I should say. You can use single server for ERP and EWM. When I say ERP, all these modules like MMSD I was speaking about, right? All these modules, and EWM is it's kind of only one system within that S4 server. It's an independent system within S4. Now the point is, since we are using EWM which is embedded on S4, you don't need to transfer the master data. You don't need to transfer the master data. When I say master data, let's say if you have created any material is created at client level. When you create basic data, material is created at client level. And after that, obviously, you need to extend it to your plant, sales area, and any other views that are required, like accounting, costing, and all other views you need to extend. So ultimately, what will happen is, once you create the data, master data, you don't need to transfer the master data to EWM, because EWM is also part of S4 server. But when it comes to transactional data, even though EWM is embedded on S4, it still acts as an independent system within S4. Let me just repeat that. Even though EWM is embedded on S4, it still acts as an independent system within S4. So that's the reason we still need to transfer the transactional data from ERP side to EWM side of S4. And also, once you perform activities in EWM, that data should flow back to ERP. So that's the whole point. Okay. Now, which version to use? Please go ahead.
Excuse me. Question here. You just mentioned that material master is whatever the master data is unidirectional. Correct. In a previous slide.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned it is a unidirectional. Correct.
Correct.
And now that is from ECC to EWM, is it?
Correct.
In a S4 embedded system, we don't have to transfer from one system to another system. There we will create directly in EWM itself. Is that it?
No, we don't create it in EWM. Basically, it's like this. Now, let's say I created a material. I have a plant 1000, and I've created the material in plant 1000. Now, imagine that I'm implementing EWM for plant 1000, and whatever the data that you created in plant 1000, EWM will be able to read that data. But again, warehouse specific data, whatever you'd like to maintain, right, such as your stock placement indicator, stock removal indicators, and any other information that you have to maintain specific to EWM. But the point, what I was saying is, in case of this one, right, SCM EWM, you need to transfer the data. Let's say you have created a material called 100. That material information you need to transfer using some functionality or some interface, I would say. We call it as core interface. That core interface part is not needed. Once you create the data in the system, EWM will be able to directly access the data, and you can extend that data to your warehouse, and you can create your you can maintain the data specific to your warehouse. That's the whole point that I was trying to highlight.
Thank you.
Okay, so this embedded EWM is released as part of S4 HANA with the 1610. This embedded EWM is equivalent to version 9.4 in SCM server. In SCM server also 9.4 version is there, and 1610 is a version in S4. And as and when SAP is releasing S4 version, right, it is adding some functionalities of EWM, and also it is adding functionalities in SCM server also. There are slight differences between embedded EWM and SCM EWM. Slight differences are there, but those differences are once you understand SCM EWM or embedded EWM, you'll be able to work on both systems. That's the whole point, because the core concept remains same. Core concept of functionalities and whatever EWM offers, all those concepts will remain same with slight changes in versions, right? So that's the whole point. Any questions till now? Okay, so that's I mean, if you see the decentralized WM versus embedded EWM, when I say decentralized WM, it is on S4 server. Sorry, it is on SCM server. When it is embedded EWM, it is on S4 server. And with the latest releases, right, SAP has released decentralized EWM on S4 also. Generally, when I say decentralized EWM, it is on SCM server, but with the latest versions, SAP has released decentralized versions on S4 also, which means we are saying, right, SAP S4 is a high performance analytical solution, like performance is more than this and all. Now, for example, if you don't want to use SCM server altogether, but you wanted to use only EWM in one instance of S4, you can still use that as a decentralized system. Within S4, you can use EWM as a decentralized system. So again, as I said, that depends on how you wanted to implement. What is the deployment option that you wanted to consider? There are so many factors that we need to consider. Let's say your EWM is connected to how many systems, how many third-party systems, or what is the volume of transactions? Is it like, is your warehouse operational 24/7? You don't want your operations to be interrupted more. And and also like other factors such as performance and other things we need to consider. Based on that, we can analyze and we can come to a conclusion that what is the version that you'd like to use. Is it embedded EWM or a decentralized EWM? Because if you use embedded EWM, which means other modules are also there as along with EWM. Let's say if you start maintenance system maintenance for other modules, you have to maintain it for EWM also. So the runtime, so the downtime will be more for your maintenance. Whereas in case of decentralized EWM, even though your ERP system is down, EWM still works. As I said, your warehouse is 24/7 operational. So if you want to still work with your EWM system, you can still work. And later, once the other part, which is your ERP part, is active, then you can push the data from EWM to ERP. And obviously, since your system is alone, like standalone, the maintenance time will be less, and your downtime also will be less. That's the whole point. So first of all, why do we use WMS solutions? Let's say if I take a typical warehouse, so what you see here, this is just an example that I've taken. So now imagine there are some multiple racks available, 115, 120, 125, 130. These are the racks that are available in your warehouse. Now a person who is sitting at office, I would say office in the warehouse, how he'll know that there is a stock available in a warehouse? Imagine the warehouse is around some 5 lakh square feet area. In that 5 lakh square feet area, where is the particular stock available, or where is the empty bin available, right? If he wanted to get that information, he cannot come and roam inside the warehouse and find out that this particular warehouse, this space is available, or this particular product is available at this location. So for that, we need to have any WMS solutions. And nowadays, since logistic movements are critical, and also identifying the location, empty location, or identifying the stock makes so important that your operation should be done as much as faster as possible, as quick as possible, in fact, I would say. Now, what do we do as part of EWM? In EWM, first thing is like it's same as WM. We have to identify the structure, like how many storage types that we can define in the warehouse. Like what are the first thing is what are the products that you're storing? How many types of products? Let's say for example, if you're storing only finished materials in your warehouse, imagine only finished materials you are storing in your warehouse. That too in finished materials, what kind of finished materials. Some finished materials may be fast moving materials. Some materials may be slow moving materials. Some materials may be medium movements. And out of this finished material, some materials may be stored at some specific temperature areas. Let's say some 20 degrees Celsius or 10 degrees Celsius or negative temperatures. You have to store that store these materials at some specific temperature areas. So based on all these things, we can divide the entire warehouse into multiple storage types. So when I say storage type, it's basically group of bins, what you see here. So these are all bins. I can consider, in case if somebody is not aware of WM, right, I just wanted to highlight this. So this can be one bin. This can be on one bin. This you can consider as one bin. Now the whole structure, what you see here, from here to here, from here to here, all this thing, this I can consider as one storage type. That's one possibility. Or this complete rack, 115 and 120, all these things I can consider as one storage type. Or 115, 120, 125, 130, all these things I can consider as one storage type. So that depends. That depends on how you wanted to handle your inventory in your warehouse. You can structure the warehouse in your system like that. So you can divide into multiple storage type. And again, within a storage type, what happens is you need to configure something called storage section. Let's say if I consider these four racks, these two racks and these two racks as one storage type. Now I'll say that this is my pathway and this is also pathway. So here, all this left portion I can consider as one section. The right portion I can consider as other section. That's one possibility. Or within the storage type, imagine these three racks are fast moving materials, only one rack is slow moving materials. I can consider this as one section and this three as other section. So that's how you can define your structure of the warehouse. And obviously you need to have some resources in order to perform activities. So the resources, what you see here. So let's say if I consider a forklift, so the forklift is something which will carry the material from some location to other location, and you can use this forklift to place stock in these locations within a warehouse that is proposed by the system. Now, so let's try to understand the system integration. So I was saying, right, EWM is part of S4HANA and we call it as embedded EWM and all. So if you see the system integration, how it will be is, you have all these modules in the S4 server, like product PP, QM, sales, MM, finance, and you can also have WM, warehouse management. Now you have EWM, which is as part of S4 only. Now in order to transfer the data from ERP side to EWM side, I'll call this entire area as, these modules as ERP, and this is EWM. So if I have to transfer the data from ERP to EWM and EWM to ERP, we need to set up RFC communication between these two. RFC communication. And once you create the data, so it generates a queue. It generates a queue. Queue means it's a kind of IDOC. In case if you are familiar with IDOCs, in IDOCs you'll have some structure and it carries some information from one system to other system. Same thing in queues also. Queue also will have some structure. It carries some information from one system to other system, like from ERP to EWM as well as from EWM to ERP. So how queue will be generated is using some BAPIs. You'll have some BAPIs for each and every type of data that you're sending. Let's say, for example, if you are sending inbound deliveries, system will consider some BAPI. Inbound delivery from ERP to EWM, system will consider one BAPI. And at the same time, in case if you are sending the data from EWM to ERP, that is also inbound delivery specific information. Let's say you have received the inbound delivery and you perform the goods visit and you perform the stock placement. All activities are done in EWM. And from there, you need to send the communication back to ERP. So for that also, we need to send a queue, or we need to trigger a queue. So that queue will be triggered by some other BAPI. Again, if I speak about outbound delivery also, we need to transfer the data from ERP to EWM as well as from EWM to ERP. In that case also, we need to use some queue. In order to generate the queue, we'll use some BAPIs. Same thing applies for production planning also. Let's say if your warehouse is tightly integrated to your manufacturing facility, and you need to transfer, you need to issue the goods for your consumption, as well as you need to receive the finished materials from the production. We need to work with EWM. We need to integrate that with EWM. So when you are sending the goods from warehouse to production flow. So you need to have some requirement from production saying that I need to have this material. So for that, we generate something called production material request, or you can generate a delivery also. So when you generate a delivery or a production material request, system will still generate a queue. For that, we use a different BAPI. The whole point is, what I wanted to highlight here is, in case if you have to transfer the data from ERP to EWM or EWM to EWM to ERP, you need to generate a queue. Okay, so this is with embedded EWM. In case if you are working with a decentralized EWM, you can use IDOCs also, but queue is the mostly used method. Like I would say 99.99% of projects we use queues only. Nobody will use IDOCs to generate, IDOCs to communicate between ERP and EWM. Now there is something called some basis setup will be available in order to maintain the system integration between ERP and EWM. So we maintain these logical systems, RFC destinations, and we'll also generate distribution models and all in order to communicate between ERP and EWM. So this is completely a basis setup. Most of the configuration what you see in the system integration is a basis setup. But as part of course, we'll also cover this because you should be able to understand how the communication is set between ERP and EWM. Any questions here?
Hello, Sima.
Yeah.
I have one doubt. Like you told that this is decentralized for means we are using queue in decentralized system, or in centralized also we can use queues.
In any of the cases, right? In either of the cases, you'll use queues only.
Okay.
The only way to communicate with the EWM system is queue, or it can be IDOC as well?
That's what I'm saying. It can be IDOC also, but in embedded EWM we have only queue, so you'll not be able to use IDOCs. But in case of decentralized EWM, you can use IDOCs also. But as I said, IDOCs is a complex method, so queue is a simple method. That's why most of the projects will use queues only. Queue is basically a flexible method of distributing the data from ERP to EWM. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Now let's try to understand functionalities. 1 second. I'll just stop my screen for a moment. I hope you're able to see my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how to set up structure engines, like how to integrate this EWM with ERP part that we have seen. Now, what is the org structure that we need to set up? So basically, it is same as WM. In WM, how do you set up? Like a plant can have multiple storage locations. Out of those storage locations, you can assign some storage locations to WM, and you can keep some storage locations at IM level. And if you want to keep all store locations at WM, even that is possible. Now the point is, plant and store location is assigned to warehouse number, which is called intermediate warehouse number in case of EWM. So we need to have intermediate warehouse number here. So this is intermediate warehouse number. Plant and store location will be assigned to warehouse number. So this intermediate warehouse number is just a shell. Shell in sense, you don't need to copy any dependent data. Generally, what we do when you create org data, or when you create org structure, you try to copy it from a reference org structure. It can be a plant or sales area or company code or anything. You try to copy it from a reference data. And also, if you are working with WM, you try to copy this warehouse number also from a reference warehouse number. But in case if you are working with EWM, you don't need to have any dependent data. Because why I'm saying that we don't need to have dependent data, we are not going to execute any transactions in WM. So when you are not executing any transactions in WM, you don't need to copy dependent data. So you can just create a warehouse number which acts as a bridge between ERP and EWM. When I say ERP and EWM, so this is your ERP org structure, and this is your EWM structure. In EWM, warehouse number is the highest organizational element. Warehouse number is the highest organizational element. You create a warehouse number, but how system knows that this warehouse number is connected to some XYZ plan? So that is through the communication between this ERP and EWM through this intermediate warehouse number. That means when you create a delivery, it can be inbound or outbound delivery. First, you input the data like material master, quantity, and other information, and system identifies that intermediate warehouse number. If this intermediate warehouse number is connected to EWM warehouse number, then system knows that this data has to flow to EWM. That's how the communication is set up through org structure. Now, in EWM, how this?
Please explain once again.
Now, I was saying, in EWM, warehouse number is the highest organizational element. So this highest organizational element, warehouse number, this should be connected to some plant and store location. Why I'm saying this should be connected to plant and store location? Because EWM is not standalone, right? Without some other data, you'll not be able to execute any data in EWM. So your data should flow from some other system, which is ERP. In ERP, what is the data? What is the structure that you need to have in order to create some data? You need to have plant, you need to have store location, and obviously the master data is also needed. Material master, vendor master, all this information is also needed. Now, when you create a data, let's say purchase order you have created, and against the purchase order, you need to create an inbound delivery. When you are creating inbound delivery, so system will read all this information related to vendor, material, plant, store location, and all. When plant and store location is determined, then system will determine the warehouse number, which is intermediate warehouse number. This intermediate warehouse number will be connected to the highest organization element of EWM, which is EWM warehouse number. That is what I was trying to say. So this warehouse number acts as a bridge between ERP structure and EWM structure, this intermediate warehouse number. Bridge between ERP and EWM structures, that's all.
One question. Here, you have in the diagram which has been shown here, there is 2 store locations. Is it mandatory to have always 2 store locations or with a single storage location? Because in the WM, I have seen single storage location also work. So is it 2 store location is required or the single storage location is also fine?
Yeah, it is like this. Like, let's say SAP recommends minimum 2 store locations for every scenario. That you'll try to understand when you get into the system and see. But the point is, you can work with single store location, you can work with multiple store location. That all depends on how many store locations you have in your plant. Basically, you can have only one store location. Only just 2 store locations also in order to take care of your complete structure. Because why do we create store locations in ERP? Can you tell me? What is the reason for creating multiple store locations in ERP?
To stock different products, maybe this the raw material or the finished products like this.
But yeah, basically to differentiate stock, right?
So yeah,
that differentiation I can do in EWM with storage types. Okay,
Mhm.
that differentiation I can do in EWM with storage types. Even in WM also, the differentiation can be done in WM with storage types. But the point is, since if your plant and storage locations already running and active, so it's like you don't want to reduce storage location. You still wanted to keep those storage locations like that. You can keep them, like if you have 10 storage locations, you can still keep 10 storage locations and you can configure your WM or EWM. That is possible.
Okay.
Okay, but SAP recommendation is to have 2 storage locations for EWM. Why do we need to have 2 storage locations? Is something which is there's some concept involved behind it. We need to understand that concept in the system. If I explain it now, it is like just in the air. So that's why I don't want to get into that complexity of concept now. So just keep that point. You can have multiple storage locations as well as single storage location or 2 storage locations. Anything is possible. Because whatever SAP recommends is a best practice. So best practice for which is defined by SAP may not be a best practice for my business. That's possible, right? So now when it comes to EWM, as I said, the highest organization element is warehouse number, and after that this warehouse is divided into multiple storage types depending on how many types of stocks that you are storing, and each and every storage type should have at least one section as per the system requirement. And further, this is divided into multiple bins. So we have seen the structure of warehouse. We have multiple bins, and after that we have something called quant. So quant is something like which defines what is a parameter of a stock, like what is a material, how much quantity, what is a stock type, and what in case we have a batch, what is a batch, expiry date of the batch, or a serial number. If you have a serial number, what is a serial number, country of origin. All this information you can have in a quant. And in EWM, there is something called activity area. So this activity area plays a crucial role in many of the configurations, I would say, in EWM. So activity area is nothing but logical grouping of bins. Logical grouping of bins. It's not physical grouping, it's logical grouping. When I say logical grouping, it's only in the system. You group some bins into activity area for some of the configurations. Some of the configuration which will provide some flexibility to your warehouse operations business. For this reason, we use activity area. So actually speaking, storage type is also group of bins and activity area is also group of bins. Whereas storage type is physical grouping, activity area is logical grouping. Let's say, for example, in a storage type, you can have 100 bins. So all those 100 bins you are considering in one storage type, right? These 100 bins I can consider as two activity areas or 3 activity areas or 5 activity areas or only one activity area. That is possible. So ultimately, with activity area, what we do is we determine some configurations and we maintain some configuration for our flexibility of operations in EWM. So this activity area is nothing but logical grouping of bins. Along with this, we also have something called product master. So product master is nothing but material master only. In EWM, the terminology is product master. And we have discussed about storage type sections and bins. And we also discussed about activity areas. And there is something called
Seema,
work cell.
one question is there. Means
Yeah.
you told that activity area means in a particular storage type we have number of bins, and we can divide into 3 or 4 activities area as well, right?
Correct.
And this activity area has to be for a particular storage type. Means
It can be like this. It can be like this also. Let's say you have 2 storage types. You can club those two. You can club bins of these storage types into one activity area. Even that is possible.
okay.
You can club bins of different activity area, different storage types into one activity area, or you can split bins of one storage type into different activity areas. Anything is possible.
Yeah, in
Okay.
example, we can say that if bins are meant to picking, so picking activity area, isn't it?
In WM you have something called picking area, right? I won't say WM. In what is this? LE we have picking areas. So that is only meant for picking purposes. In here, in EWM, the activity area is used for different purposes. For example, I would say in one activity area, I don't want system to execute cycle count or a physical inventory. I want to restrict that. I can restrict that. In one activity area, I don't want any internal movements to be executed. I can control that. Only picking and put away should be executed. That I can control. So likewise, we have many controls which can be achieved with the activity areas in EWM. Right?
Okay.
I'll take a simple example. In case if you already have experience on WM, right? Say for example, I wanted to perform cycle count. How we perform cycle count? Cycle count is always a material specific. I'll categorize materials based on A, B, C classification, or you can have other classification D or till D also. Now let's say if I wanted to run or execute a cycle count for A class material, let's say one material is there, material number 100. For that material, I wanted to execute cycle count. This material may be available in, let's say, 20 bins in a warehouse. I need to count all those 20 bins, is it? In cycle count, because that is product specific. I need to count all 20 bins in WM. So, but in EWM, I can control saying that this particular product should not be counted in 20 locations, 20 bins. I should count only in 10 bins, which belongs to some activity area. So that can be controlled using this activity area only. That means within a warehouse also, only specific areas I want to implement this procedure. Specific areas I want to implement this cycle count. Specific areas I don't want to implement cycle count. It's a normal physical inventory procedure I would like to follow. So that is possible. That can be differentiated with this activity areas. Also, let's say for example, RF instance, like in case if you are using any mobile device or scanners for performing activities, I have some 10 fields to be scanned. For example, if I have to perform the put away, imagine that I have 10 fields to be scanned, like source bin, material, quantity, destination bin, source handling unit, destination handling unit, and some other information, serial number or batch or any other information. If I want to scan, if I have to scan all these 10 fields, business may say that I don't want to scan all these fields. I just want to scan source bin and destination bin and product and quantity. Only these 4 fields I wanted to scan. Remaining fields I don't want to scan. How do you control that in WM? We have options to control this in WM, but in EWM also we have options to control using verification profiles. Again, this verification profiles can be determined based on these activity areas. When I say based on activity areas, if I am performing the stock placement in one activity area, I want to control verification profile. If I'm performing stock placement in other activity area, I don't want to control any verification profiles. That can be achieved with this activity area. So likewise, we can set up multiple rules depending on the requirements that we have, but ultimately those rules will be determined based on the activity area. Okay. Now we have work centers. Work centers are nothing but these are not PP work centers. In PP, we create work centers, right, for production processes. In EWM also we have something called work center. These are not PP work centers. In work centers we perform special activities. So what are the special activities that you can imagine? So you can imagine special activities such as packing, repacking, or value-added services, or what else? Quality inspection. So these kind of special activities, whatever you do, these activities will be performed in a location called work center in a warehouse. In sense, we identify a location which is called work center in EWM. Wherever you perform special activities, we call them as work centers. And obviously we have something related to doors, because imagine that your warehouse has multiple doors. You need to capture all that information in the system. You need to maintain the structure, and also you need to maintain the master data. And we have HU master data. HU master data instance handling unit. In WM we have storage units, right? So we'll not have storage units in EWM. It is handling unit only. Like whatever the handling unit that you generate in ERP side, the same handling unit you can use in EWM, or you can generate handling unit in EWM. That information can be flown back to ERP. That is about HU master. And we have something called packaging specification. So packaging specification is nothing but packing instruction. You would have seen packing instructions in ERP. So why do we use packing instruction? To generate a HU automatically depending on certain conditions. So here also we use packaging specification to generate HUs based on certain conditions. And we also have some other terminology which we use for which we use in EWM. So this is like availability group, document type, item types. Availability groups are there. Availability groups will represent store locations of ERP. In EWM, we don't have a terminology called store location. So we can use this availability group to determine store location in EWM. Or you can say availability group is equivalent to store location EWM, and this availability group will play an important role in determining stock types. Availability group plays an important role in determining stock types. And also we'll have something related to document type and item type. Document type and item type in sense, like you have in the ERP, you have delivery type, item categories and all, right? So those delivery type and item categories will be determined by document type and item type in EWM. And we have something called warehouse process type. In ERP, we have movement types. Any material movement, you need to have a movement type. So in EWM also, in order to perform any material movement type, we need to have warehouse process type. So you can have different categories of warehouse process types, like inbound some WPTs, inbound some warehouse process types, outbound some warehouse process types, internal some warehouse process types. So there are different warehouse process types available. And we have warehouse request. So warehouse request is nothing but a delivery document. In EWM, the terminology is warehouse request. Delivery document, we call it as warehouse request. And we have warehouse task and warehouse order. In WM, you have a transfer order and transfer requirement, right? So don't compare this warehouse task and warehouse order with transfer requirement and transfer order. So this warehouse order you can compare with the TO, but warehouse task is not equivalent to TR. Warehouse task is nothing but line item of a TO. In TO transfer order, you can have, let's say, 10 items, right? All those 10 items we can call it as warehouse tasks. We don't have TR here. If you want to compare that TR, so this warehouse request itself, it can be compared with TR. Okay. And we have something related to PPF action. PPF action is in post-processing framework. Let's say in ERP, if you want to print something, let's say purchase order or delivery document or any other thing, you use NACE-based outputs, right? So those outputs are not applicable for EWM. We use PPF action, post-processing framework. So this can be used for printing and for action scheduling. Action scheduling means I want to create task automatically, or I want to perform goods visit automatically, or I want to perform goods issue automatically. All this action scheduling you can do with PPF actions. So these are some things which needs to be understand. So when you see the document flow, as I was saying, for inbound process, let's say if you create a PO, against the PO you can create inbound delivery. That inbound delivery will get distributed to EWM, and in EWM it creates a warehouse request, or you can call it as inbound delivery, against which you perform the goods visit. And after that, if you have to perform the stock placement, you can create a warehouse task. A group of warehouse task is warehouse order. And finally, when you place the stock, you confirm the warehouse order or warehouse task, which will complete your process. Same thing applicable for outbound. In outbound also, you have, let's say you can create a sales order or customer scheduling agreement or a stock transfer order, which against which you create a delivery. That delivery will be distributed to EWM. You call it as outbound delivery order or a warehouse request, against which you create a warehouse task. Group of warehouse task is a warehouse order, And once you pick, you confirm the activity. After that, you can perform the goods issue. Last, system will create outbound delivery. In EWM, system creates one outbound delivery. So this is mandatory to create one extra outbound delivery in EWM. Why do we need this? This is used to send the communication back to ERP. In case of inbound, against inbound delivery, communication will be sent. But in case of outbound, after you perform all activities in EWM, it creates one outbound delivery. This is the one which is used to send the communication from EWM to ERP. So this is technical requirement basically. Also, for example, if you wanted to send ASN to your customer, so you can use this outbound delivery to trigger ASNs. Or if you want to print your outbound delivery, like packing list. If you wanted to print packing list, you can use this outbound delivery to print packing list. So this is a document flow. Now, all processes put in one slide. Like what are the processes that you can imagine a warehouse? Receiving. After receiving the stock, you need to perform, before receiving, it's like unloading. First unload the stock, and then update in the system, and then perform the stock placement. So before you perform the stock placement, there may be a possibility that you need to perform quality inspection. In order to perform the quality inspection, you can move the stock to a separate location. In case if you don't want to keep the stock, if you don't want to pile up the stock in the staging area, that is receiving area, you can move the stock to a separate location to perform quality inspection. And once quality inspection is passed, then you can move the stock to the destination bin. If it is failed, you can reverse the stock. You can return the stock to your vendor. Now, let's say, for example, you're receiving a consolidated box. When I say consolidated box, in one box, you have 3 items. So customer has sent the box, vendor has sent the stock, box itself. You have received the box, you have unloaded the box. After unloading, since it has 3 products, I need to break the box and repack it, because basically I wanted to keep them in a packed format, repack them, and then place the stock in the different locations. If you have to perform that activity, it is a manual activity. Whether you show it in the system or not, obviously this kind of activities will be done in warehouse, which is not supported in WM. But in case of EWM, we use a concept called process oriented storage control, POSC. Using POSC, what you can do is, system proposes that it has to follow this process. Let's say if you're receiving multiple products, and if you have already configured POSC, system proposes saying that you need to receive it first. In order to receive, first create unloading task, assign that unloading task to some operator, they'll go and unload. Once the stock is unloaded, again system will say that this box has multiple items in it, move to a separate location where you can perform repacking activity. So operator will move the stock to a separate location. There operator will repack the total handling unit into individual handling unit, or I would say consolidated handling unit into individual handling unit. And after that, system proposes that these products or these items should be placed in these locations. That's how the process will be executed. You see here, this is a multi-step process. Unloading is one step, and then after that you are moving it to repacking location. Repacking is other step, and then you are moving it to the destination location, which is your put away step. 3 steps. You can introduce one more step here, quality inspection. For example, after unloading, after repacking, I wanted to perform the quality inspection. So unloading, repacking, and quality inspection, and then put away. Or after quality inspection, you wanted to perform some special activities. Special activities instance, let's say a simple example that I'll take is apparel industry. Let's say if you're working in apparel industry, you are receiving a t-shirt and it says that 100 rupees. You wanted to sell it for 200 rupees or 150 rupees, imagine. I receive the stock and then I repack all those different types of t-shirts into different handling units. And after that, what I wanted to do is I wanted to perform the quality inspection. and after that I wanted to relabel the price tags. Relabeling price tags, that can be considered as a value-added services. Again, here it is unloading, repacking, quality inspection, relabeling, and then put away. 5 steps. So depending on the processes that you're following in a warehouse, you can set up these processes into multiple steps. System will force you to perform those activities. And obviously you can skip that. That is possible. Skipping is always possible by entering some means of deviations. Same thing applies for outbound. In the outbound case, what we do, first we pick the stock and do goods issue. That is direct process. But that is not something which is followed in any industry. You pick the stock, pack it, label it, attach all these labels, identification labels, or any other documentation, and then you goods issue. They perform the goods issue. So picking is one step, packing is one step, and in case if you wanted to perform special packing, that I can consider as value-added services, and labeling activities and all, that I can consider as one activity. So all these activities we can execute in step by step.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. POSC, right?
Correct.
Is this a template which tells about when a goods comes, this processes has to be followed for this product?
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay, like some X product is came at a door, you have to unload it, you have to repack it, you have to quality management it, and label it and put away it.
Correct.
If there are steps differentiate, that will be another process oriented storage control step, isn't it?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
So obviously the process which you need to follow, that depends on the product that you're using. So that's why we can set up multiple process oriented storage controls, and in each POIC you can have different steps. Some products you don't need to perform quality inspection, you can skip that. Some products you must perform quality inspection, you need to have a POIC. For that you need to have a different setup. So you can maintain that configurations depending on the type of processes that followed in the warehouse. So the difference between WM and EWM purely is WM mostly focuses on the storage, right? But EWM focuses a lot. When EWM is also for storage, that's ultimately we are trying to store the products in a warehouse. But before storage, EWM is more focused on process also. How you are receiving it, and what are the processes that should undergo before you store the product, or what are the processes that this should undergo before you perform the goods issue. So EWM is more focused towards processes also. And also obviously we have something related to changing the destination bin. For example, you have created a put away task, system has proposed a bin called XYZ. Now operator went there, he tried to place the stock in the bin, and by the time he goes there, there may be some other stock available. Because of some discrepancies, that stock is not showing in the bin as per the that stock is not showing in the system. As per the system, it is an empty bin, but physically there is some stock available. Now operator cannot place the stock in that bin. He has to change the destination bin. I mean, he has to change the bin proposed by the system. So WM allows to do that. If you maintain the configuration, WM allows to do that. But you don't have a visibility, or you don't have a proper track why that bin has changed, right? So in EWM, every deviation that you are doing, let's say system has proposed one bin, you're trying to place the stock in other bin, you need to enter an exception code. You can enter an exception code and you can change it. So what is the advantage of entering an exception code? Let's say I'll take a report of all exceptions that are raised on that particular day, and I'll analyze. As a supervisor, I wanted to analyze all that exceptions, and I'll analyze and I'll find out these are the exception codes used in this today. Why these exception codes are used? Obviously, each and exception code. I mean, there are multiple exception codes available, and you can configure some exception codes based on your requirement also. If particular exception code is used, operator knows, supervisor knows that this is the reason this exception code is used. If exception codes are used regularly, that means there is something really wrong in the warehouse performance. Why I'm saying that there is something really wrong in the warehouse performance? If I take this example only, as per the system, bin is empty, but physically there is a stock available in the bin, which is a discrepancy. If this is happening frequently, then that means operators are not following the process, and there is a double activity which needs to be executed. So that's why using this report of exceptions, we can analyze, we can perform the root cause analysis, and then we can come to a conclusion saying that there is something really wrong. I need to take an action. That's a whole. Any deviation,
Is
right?
there
Any deviation.
is there any standard report available to track this exception codes?
Yeah, we can take exception codes in the report.
The standard report is available in the EWM, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Means you mean to say that how many tasks are or the orders has been processed through with this exception code that we can track in a report?
Correct.
Okay.
So likewise, you have many processes in EWM, like we have something related to kitting. So kit is nothing but a group of products. So there is a difference between assembly and kit. Assembly is nothing but which is in a ready to use condition. Whereas kit is nothing but in order to produce an assembly, what are the components needed? It's like, for example, you buy a TV set. In a TV set, what are all the components you'll have? A display, cables, and remote, and all screws and nuts and all these things which are needed for generating a TV. So TV set, which is in a running condition, is an assembly. But in order to produce that an assembly, what are the components that are needed? So that is nothing but a kit, right? So depending on the requirement, we can generate kits. For example, if I take a TV set only, so display is manufactured by some manufacturer. All these remotes are manufactured by other manufacturer. Cables are manufactured by other manufacturer. So likewise, I buy all these materials from different manufacturers. I bring them into my warehouse, and what I can do is I can pack them together and deliver TV set to customer. And customer, what they can do is like they can assemble them and they can use them. Now, in order to generate this required components into one packing, we use a concept called kitting. So these kits can be generated based on the customer requirement, or these can be generated based on your forecast. Let's say TV set, I know what are the components needed in a TV set. I'll keep all those components in one box and pack them together. And then whenever customer orders, I'll directly issue the kit TV set. Right? And based on the customer requirement, if you are generating kits, that is called kit to order. So customer may ask, like, you already generated a kit. Along with the TV set, he may order a wall mount channels. So the wall mount channel is generally not part of TV set. So you're adding one more product to the existing kit, or you're grouping multiple products based on the customer requirement. That is kit to order, just like your make to order scenario. But in make to order, you use production process, but in kitting process, without production process, you can execute kitting process. That's the point. Likewise, there are many processes. If I keep on speaking, right, many processes are there which can be used. Like if we say, I try to highlight some processes here. Simple receiving means just receive and place the stock. But if I have POIC, I can have deconsolidation, which is nothing but repacking. Counting and quality inspections. Counting is not part of embedded DWM now. This is not there in embedded DWM. Instead of, you can use quality inspection only to perform counting activities also. And we can have validated services. And you can work with quantity classifications. Quantity classification instance. For example, if I receive handling units, I wanted to place in one storage type. If I'm receiving loose products, I wanted to place in other storage types. Material may be same, but sometime I'm receiving handling units. I wanted to place in one storage type. When I'm receiving as a loose products, I want to place in other storage type. So that can be achieved with quantity classification. Or If I receive pallets, I wanted to place in one storage tank. If I am receiving cartons, I want to place in other storage tank. Even that can be achieved with quantity classification. And obviously you have different put away rules, addition to stock, empty bin, and capacity check, fixed bin. There are different put away rules available, like what we have in WM. So in outbound also we have simple shipping process, POSC, and we have something related to wave management. So wave management, in sense, if you want to club deliveries based on certain criteria for planning your picking process, you can use the wave management. For example, all deliveries which are going in one route on that particular day, I want to club them together for performing my picking activities. So that can be achieved with wave management. And we have something related to two-step picking. Two-step picking is nothing but, let's say you wanted to pick the stock from high rack, place it in intermediate location. From there you wanted to move it to a separate location. So which is a two-step picking process. And I was saying warehouse order creation rules. So warehouse order creation rules are nothing but setting up rules for your any activity. It can be put away activity or picking activity. If you want to set up some rules which needs to be followed, we use this warehouse order creation rule. For example, I have 100 items. 100 items I wanted to consider in one pick list, or I wanted to consider two pick lists. So that can be achieved with warehouse order creation rule. Imagine in a delivery you have 100 items. Obviously system will create 100 tasks. All these 100 tasks, if I hand over to one operator, he may take 2 days to perform the picking. But I want to split that 100 tasks into two different pick lists. What I can do is I can use warehouse order creation rule. I can set up warehouse order creation rule in such a way only 10 items to be considered in one warehouse order, which is nothing but pick list. If I have more than 10 items, that will create another pick list. I can hand over that another pick list to another operator so that my picking activity will be easy. So that is warehouse order creation rule. Now, there are other functionalities also as part of this. This is just a simple example that I tried to highlight. And we have internal activities such as replenishment, posting changes, physical inventories, and we can also perform warehouse optimizations based on certain results. And so this is how your mobile data entry looks like, which is nothing but RF transaction. You would have seen RF transactions in WM also. EWM also same, but with more flexibilities compared to WM, and more transactions available in EWM in standard. Within standard, you have more transactions available. And this is monitor. So in WM also we have monitor. In EWM we have monitor. If you just know about monitor, like what are the functionalities that are available in monitor, you can survive. As an end user, somebody can survive if they understand the monitor. Because all transactions you can find in monitor. It can be inbound documents, outbound documents, physical inventory documents. If you want to check the stock, if you want to check how many queues available for a particular activity, and if you wanted to trigger some alerts. So all these activities you can do from monitor itself. Let's say if I want to find out all deliveries for which goods receipt is not done, I can go and check them in inbound. I wanted to check all outbound deliveries for which goods issue is not done. I can find out from monitor. See, monitor is not just for checking this report. You can perform transactions also from the monitor, such as creation of task, confirmation of task, moving the stock from one location to other location. All these activities can be done from monitor itself. And trust me, there are no other reporting tools in EWM other than this monitor. Only monitor is a centralized reporting tool, as well as you can perform transactions in the monitor. In WM also we have monitor, but we don't have this many functionalities in WM. It just shows like how many transfer orders are open, that's all. For example, in WM, if you want to check stock, you have to go to LS24 or LS26. If you want to check open transfer orders, you have to go to other transaction. So if you want to check any other information, you have to go to some other. If you want to check empty bins, you have to go to, let's say, LX03. So there are different transactions available for each and everything. But in EWM, within single transaction, there are different folders. You can go to different folders and find out the stock. And also, you can customize this monitor also. The look and feel of the monitor you can customize. Say for example, some operators are responsible only for inbound activities, and I don't want to show all those activities to other operators. So I can create a custom monitor, and I can assign that custom monitor to an operator. That is possible. So transactions a bit lengthy compared to other transactions. Seems to be lengthy, but they are easy to remember. All transaction starts with SCWL, and finally the transaction, which is short form of transaction. So in other modules, right, ME21N. So ME means that's basically German transactions. All these transactions are German transactions. But whereas German in sense of German language. In EWM, all these transactions are English transactions. For example, goods receipt, GR. Inbound delivery notification, IDN. Goods receipt external procurement, GRP. Goods receipt internal production, GRPI. So likewise, transactions are easy to remember. They're not complex. But as I said, you don't need to remember all these transactions. You can redirect from this monitor also to all these transactions, whatever you see here. But obviously, as a consultant, we need to remember, we need to identify, we'll try to find out transactions, and we may try to maintain data and transactions. That's a different story. But as I said, transaction seems to be lengthy, but they are easy to remember. And finally, so if I try to compare with WM and EWM, even though I've not covered 100% functionalities of EWM, so these are some points which we can use to compare WM and EWM. Finally, what you get as part of EWM solution. Questions? So one more thing that I wanted to highlight is the version which we are using here is 1909, S4 1909, and we'll be running on embedded EWM. Again, as I said, even though you learn embedded EWM, you can still work on decentralized EWM, or if you learn decentralized EWM, you can still work on embedded EWM. There are slight changes, but core functionality would remain same. Questions?
Not a subject relative, but when will be the classes? Saturday, Sunday?
No, it's not Saturday, Sunday. Monday to Friday.
Monday to Friday.
Morning 6:30. Morning 6:30
Morning?
IST. In case 6:30 IST.
Okay.
What is the duration of this course?
2 months.
Okay. So we are going to learn this